I forgot to go to push to talk. Give me a second. It's gonna mess things up. There we go. All right. You guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right, Corey. I guess we'll go through some of the changes first, actually, and then Corey can take over and direct the discussion. So I guess we'll start with what's in game first. So first things first, this is a new menu. It's for all of the different. Well, it's going to be for a lot of things, but for right now, it's for the buildings. Is the only place I have it put in. So we've got the portrait area, little cool frilly stuff, and then we got a title area, a new X button, um, and so that is, a new addition that we've got. We have new unit cards. So these are actually brand new. Just put them in. The scroll bar doesn't even line up quite properly yet, but it lines up to the outside of the background. But we'll work on that. The scroll bar got put in. Um, you're faded out when you're away instead of completely gone. Your EXP bar shows here. We redid the way the text is. The whole thing got redone. And now we can scroll through and see all the different information. Um, Still working on getting everything centered right. Something seems to have gotten slightly off here, but nonetheless, we'll center those. I don't know what happened there. I must have messed something up. But anyway, point being, all of this has been redone, and now that you can scroll, and that may not seem like a big deal, now we can have more than 8 characters, which is the big deal. So I think we're going to set a certain number of characters to start with as your minimum number of slots. Let's pretend for a second that's 8. And then you'll have an upgrade in here that will expand your guild slots. Um, so we can do that now because we have it scrolling and all of that. And then these used to be floating heads similar to that, if anybody remembers. And now we're going to be using these um, in a lot of different places, including redoing this menu. So those. What else did we get to? And that was a lot, to be honest. I'm trying to remember what else
Yeah.
I did.
That alone was a lot of work.
Yeah. Let me open up my.
You want me to put that they're off center as a task or leave
Um,
it?
I think I'll see him enough to fix that. I don't know, like that really. I don't know why that
Sounds
got
good.
just slightly off like that. I did something stupid, probably. Let's
No problem.
see.
Yeah, I mean, because the female Annie there is centered or positioned well, but
No,
then yeah, she's
her
way off.
head's right on the edge. She should be slightly further over.
Think it
Okay.
has anything to do with the resolution you're testing at?
Could be. Um, very much could be. But that's a brand new feature. Just got that put in, so we'll work that through. No big deal. Let's see the main menu. We already showed that. I think we already showed health bars last week. It's on my list of things that I've changed since last patch, but creating a party. Things now snap where you want them to be instead of so they show that they're ready to go in, as opposed to you had to kind of get your cursor over it and there was a little bit of confusion. So that's
Cool. So
now
if you put
fixed.
him in and you try to get somebody else in there, Chris is lagging.
Anyway, so it works.
There we go. He's back.
So anyway,
Thank.
that's a small change, but it's there. And then some alert messages change. Oh, when you hover over little things, but when you hover over a building, you'll notice this node darkens as well now, so that it's easy to tell which node it belongs to when you get too many in one area. Little things, but the big changes are the scroll bar, the unit card, and we have the new frame. So those are big there. And then we have some stuff that's coming up. Let's see, Photoshop.
So if you hover over the building, the node icon highlights, or if you hover over that node, the building highlights.
Right now it's the building node hovers the node, but I can also do that other part as well. Was really just to be just a signal to which node you're looking at. But if you want the other way, the reverse direction, we can definitely do that.
I mean, it dims out, right, when you hover over the building? Yeah, there you go. Good.
So, but yeah, we can do the reverse. I'm fine with that. I didn't think of it. So, all right. So we have a new set of armor, and we have two colorings of it currently. So we have the kind of tealy color and the purple color, which is a little darker. Cool set to get put in. The jeweler room, which we talked about last time, but I didn't have it to show. Geodes and whatnot all over the place, and workbench for the jeweler and all that kind of stuff, grinding wheel, all the different things you might expect a jeweler to have. So we're getting closer on getting that system into the game. And Kyle, I don't know if you have anything special to say about this piece, but feel free to chime in if you do.
No, I think we already showed off the person we're going to put in there, the jeweler. Gonna be a goblin dude. It's got just kind of standard crafter outfit with like a leather apron and stuff.
Cool. And then we've talked about the quest log, I believe last time, and this is kind of a mock-up that we have for it currently. These are toggleable buttons to toggle the three different types of objectives/quests. So you'll have your primary objectives, your optional objectives, and then this one's toggled off, but if it was toggled on, you would have your actual quests your parties are on below it. So that's what we're thinking on that, and that's kind of the direction we're
That'll
going for
clean
now.
up the top right
Huh?
quite a bit. Yeah, that'll clean up the top right a
Yeah.
lot.
I mean, as opposed
That's it.
to
Let the user see what
this.
they see. Yeah.
I think we mentioned that we put in a new font and everything last time. Really very happy with it so far. There's still some arrangements to fix, but overall they're getting pretty cleaned up in the game. I think we showed the button the last time, but lots of UI stuff. We're doing a lot with the UI right now. Hopefully it really improves people's experience over time. No one thing I think is gonna magically fix the user experience, but incrementally, one piece at a time, hopefully we're getting to a better and better spot so people can feel a part of the game as well as stay in that universe, stay in that fantasy a little better. But yeah, I think that's all of the new stuff for now. Corey, what's our first topic?
So our first topic is player portraits in the guild house. That's something that we kind of discussed off stream. We worked a lot with it, throughout the week and at different times, and that's what they've turned out to be. So, is there anything that we want to finalize on that before we close out that discussion? Any changes that we're thinking of? Just anything around that.
Well, I mean, I gotta recenter these. Obviously, I didn't
Yep.
get that quite right, but past that, super minor, but I just might need a few more pixels tall to squeeze these in a little better. Right now, they're chopped off just barely at the bottom on the traits. I may need just a few pixels, which would then change the frame height by a few pixels as well. But past that, I don't know. Kyle, you got something?
No, I mean, we got all the content in there. It'd just be, I guess, the height for the traits, I'm guessing, is what you want. That.
Are we happy with that experience color?
Well, we talked about using a different color, but haven't gotten it in yet.
Okay.
So this is still that tan color.
Yeah, I was in and out of that conversation, so I just didn't remember where we landed on it.
Yeah, it's gonna change. It's just not in. Um, that's where it landed. And yeah. Anything else on that one, guys?
So are you selected on Archie right now? Is that why he's highlighted?
No, there's some bug associated with that, and I'm not sure where
Okay.
it's coming from. I haven't figured out how he's getting highlighted. I know how to unhighlight him. You just have to click on him. But like, it doesn't just stay. I'm not sure what is causing that highlight. It just happened, but I don't know why it just happened, you know?
Yeah.
So I have to figure out what's going
Oh, there
on
you go.
there.
You just made it happen.
Yeah, I
Whatever
know.
that.
I just haven't figured out how it happens because I was just playing over him, and then all of a sudden, you can go over them over and over again, and they don't break, and then all of a sudden they just stick, and I'm not quite sure. Oh, it's when I move the screen. Then all of a sudden they stick the first time. That's weird.
Oh.
Anyway,
Whoa, okay.
well, at least I
Interesting.
figured out why they're
Yeah,
doing it.
that's
But anyway, that's that. I'll figure out and fix those highlighting
Cool.
issues. But yeah. Okay, what's our next topic,
So
Corey?
are these portraits to be used in the battle screen, or we're gonna have a little bit different portraits there? Have we decided on that yet?
I don't know that we have. I don't think I'm quite ready for that conversation yet. I have too much UI stuff to do to keep getting too far out ahead. I don't want to forget where we're at.
Sounds good.
Maybe next week on that one, just because I've probably got another week worth of, or close to a week worth of stuff just to do with what we've already talked about, which I
Cool.
guess we can quickly tell everybody else what we're talking about. So this party menu, what we're planning to do is take these uh, player cards, unit cards, and then run them down the side. And then we have the inventory and the quest is redone along the right hand side um, in a much nicer fashion. Um, that way we get consistency from this and we don't have all this scrunched up nonsense-ish here. We have these nice pretty unit cards. And then also on the battle menu, this is the battle menu. You'll have the 5 from your guild here, and then your enemies will be out on this side, and then you'll have the center in a much nicer fashion with the rewards and the objectives and the quest that you're on and where you got it from and all of that kind of stuff all in the middle. But that's going to take me time. UI changes are time consuming. They're not difficult, they're just time consuming. Got to get this pixel right and that pixel right, and it just takes time. So I don't want to get too far ahead on that stuff, lest we'll forget the little pieces of the conversation that are important, in my opinion.
Sounds good. So, yeah, our next topic then is who's our jeweler? What's his backstory?
Okay, so we know he's a goblin, and in this case, we know he's male. Oh, what did I break?
Uh-oh.
Well, that ain't good. Anyway, we can keep talking. I'll fix that in a second. Oh,
Yeah, I mean,
that's
has much been outlined with him yet? I guess I'm just kind of waiting for a starting point on do we have a bit of a backstory on the blacksmith that we're looking to intertwine with it, or I'm not as familiar with
no.
all this.
They don't need to be together in that way. Um, the blacksmith. So basically, the story on the blacksmith covers where they came from, why they're in the human lands. They being dwarves, it's not just that one. And then um, you know, who he is and why he belongs there. Um, so We know we have a goblin. We probably need to know why why is he in the human lands? And
And he's
you know,
picked up in Act 2, or
level 2. But yes,
whatever we call it. Is it Act 2? I don't even know.
level 2.
I thought
So
we had it. I remembered coming up with like a backstory or reasoning or something.
What was that, Kyle?
for the
I feel
goblin,
like we had some kind of interaction. Yeah, for the maybe it was the dwarf.
definitely the dwarf. We haven't talked about the
We
goblin.
talked a little bit about
Yeah, then it was the goblin because I thought we were saying like
him being there for making money because he wasn't really too worried about the mines and whatnot. He just wanted the gems, and then he would.
I mean, that was an
yeah.
idea. I
Oh,
don't
okay.
have we
Yeah.
have
Well, then
we
we want to discuss
finalized
that idea.
anything. Yeah, we can absolutely talk about that.
Yeah, yeah, we did talk a little bit about that.
So I think what it was the goblin. I think I'm trying to remember now. It was the idea that the goblin was coming and like the dwarves there. He wants the metal. They want all this other stuff, but the gems don't matter as much to them. So they're selling them off to the goblin, and the goblin's thinking, "Oh, I can get these gems for real cheap because they want them anyways." Well, as much.
Um, I mean, I'm not opposed to that, but there's not necessarily any reason why they need to be intertwined. If we have a different idea, um, but I mean that's a decent start.
Do we have any story around the second town?
Yeah, there's tons of story chunks throughout. Well, not tons. There's a few story chunks. It's a town that has been kind of invaded by the undead. I'll pull up some chunks in a minute here. Actually, you know
Okay.
what? I'll just pull them up now. Give me a second. I wanted to get through the battle, but I'll do that in a minute. Let's see. Text.
So then the wine rack and the workbench shadows not working. That was a task that was completed. Those are in now. The
Yeah, you can see the shadows there. They're no
rack
longer.
on the bottom, right on the wine rack.
I don't have a wine. Yeah, at the bottom there, but I don't have the other stuff. But these are one of the ones that had an issue. These had an issue. So there was a few of them. There's more than what's shown in this current battle, but yeah.
Sorry, I'm bouncing around a little bit trying to make sure we cover out tasks.
It's all right. I'm trying to find these story chunks. So
Yep. While you're in there, I'm looking at like the UI because I know we had a lot of battle stuff that finished up.
yeah. Interesting. Huh. I think I'm probably going to have to look for these another time.
Okay, well, I'm just trying to get some backstory so we can kind
Oh,
of
they're out
jump
of
into
order. That's what it was.
the goblins a bit. Goblins are usually pretty greedy. Usually they're after some money, so gems are shiny. I guess that's pretty similar. Um,
Yeah. So who are our goblins, right? Are we
yeah,
more
I get.
standard on our goblins?
Mm-hmm.
So we're
And you're
gonna
talking
go.
about like their species back lore.
Yeah. Do we have anything we want to insert in that? They're money grubbing traders. Not like traders like bad people, but like they like to trade things.
Merchants kind of thing.
Merchants. There, yeah, this is a better way to say it.
Hey,
Greedy.
what kind of magic are goblins usually associated with, if any?
Uh, I don't really associate goblins with a specific type of magic.
Okay.
Um,
I couldn't think of one either. That's why I was asking.
I mean, some lores are gonna make them pretty evil. So
I kind of like them being a little less evil and a little more neutral. Just like there's just another species like an ogre or an orc or like I mean, not ogre, but like an orc or a dwarf.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess like are they like techie? Are they into, you know, mechanical things? Are they
I don't. This world is not doing mechanical things.
okay? So they're more into like
I mean, as far as mechanics go, the what would be available in the medieval world would be available there. So, I mean, you'd have water towers and stuff, but you wouldn't be looking at um, steampunk type stuff like
I
you
was
get. Hmm?
I was mostly thinking like they have catapults and weaponized barrels or wagons and just kind of basic stuff for the most part.
Yeah, that would be fine. I just wanted to be kind of clear there. There's no steampunk. We have a steampunk world. That's our hydraulic empire world. We don't need to mix those two.
yep.
So,
So they
uh,
like trading.
right. They like trading. They're green. They're little comparatively. I mean, they're not going to be tiny on our screen, as you can see. He is smaller than a human, but he's not teeny tiny. But that's a limitation within this game, not the scale of the character if we were to do
Mhm.
more of a proportional thing. The smaller you make these guys, all of the detail in their outfits just completely disappear. So,
So do we want them more physical, more magical? Doesn't matter.
well, goblins are, I think, agility based in this current game, but we can edit that if we want it to be different. Um, let's see, goblins. All of this is subject to change, so don't jump on this people who are playing it. So they get stam, int, agility, and dexterity from their um, racials. They get twice as much agility and dexterity as int and stamina. Um, this is kind of the minimum stamina for a race, so they're really not stamina heavy, as opposed to say like I assume an orc has double stam. Yeah, an orc has double stam.
I mean that kind of makes sense, I guess, right? They're little sales guys. They're little
Dwarf has
sneaky
triple
sleight of
stam.
hand,
Yeah.
um,
That
agility, dexterity. That's cool. I think that kind of goes with it. It helps them kind of keep in the shadows. I think that goes with kind of what we're creating here.
But they're also smart. They're mischievous is the way I see goblins. Like
Yeah.
their greed and mischievous nature is what it leads them to oftentimes be on the evil side, is because they want something and they'll do whatever they need to get it. That's my vision of goblins. I don't know if you guys agree on that, but they're not actually evil for evil's sake. They end up doing stupid shit because they want something.
They're just greedy little jerks. They're not evil though.
Right.
Yeah. So they're
That's
driven
kind of how
towards
I
their
see
personal
them.
goals.
So does that stat line work? You guys are good with that stat line? Since we're talking
I
about
like
it, we
it.
might as well.
Yeah, I think that
Yeah.
really makes sense. They're smarter than average. A little less health doesn't make as much sense. Or I mean, a little more health doesn't really make as much sense. Maybe the stamina we can take away.
Well, that is
But
the lowest stamina for any race. Is
okay.
one for every 3 levels. Like a dwarf has three for every three
Oh, they
levels.
need some. Okay.
It just keeps you going
Mm-hmm.
up.
That makes.
Um, a dwarf is one every level. An orc is one every or two every 3 levels. I think humans are just one. Yeah, humans get one of everything. That's what they get. Undead might also be one of everything currently. That's something we
How do
can
they stack against others in intelligence?
on goblins.
Yeah.
They are not dumb, meaning they don't have 0 intelligence, but the smartest is the elf with 2 intelligence
Okay.
per
And
3
then
levels.
humans would probably be next.
Humans are just ones on everything. They get
So are goblins under one or are they over one?
they're 1.
Because goblins, huh?
They're 1. They're the same as human
Okay.
currently. That doesn't mean they have to
And
stay
what are
that way.
dwarves?
0, I think. 0.
Okay.
So they have 3 stamina, so they're super stamina heavy. A strength, agility, and a spirit. So strength and agility, that's all 3 of these are tanky, and then that's kind of for priesting, getting your resource back, stuff like that. So longevity. Also, it's tanky because spirit gives you resist.
Mm-hmm.
So all of this is geared at tankying currently.
Okay.
The elf is mostly smart stuff. So far, it has 2 spirit, 2. Oh, it only has 1 spirit. 1 spirit, 2 int. I think the elf I got. I'm stuck between the smart elves and like the agility based elf kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Um,
think if goblins seem like they're kind of the more agility based elf, I can see them with our choices here currently being smart. We're getting outside of the we're getting quite outside of the jeweler scope, but
yeah, well, and it doesn't hurt to talk about this stuff, even though we got sidetracked. Um, well, what do you guys think of an elf, right? What is an elf?
Stat wise?
Sure, we can talk
I
stat
mean,
wise. We can talk whatever we want.
oh, I wasn't sure what you meant, but okay.
I partially did mean stat wise, so I'm just
well, are
saying.
we talking about Santa's elves, or are we talking about like more WoW elves?
Yeah, I think more Lord of the Ring or WoW like elves.
Yeah, I agree. Tall elves, not tiny elves.
Okay.
Um, Tiny elves are gnomes. At least that's my thought. Not that they're tiny elves, but tiny people. You got gnomes, you've got all kinds of little dudes, sprites, fairies. You can do all kinds of stuff with little people. You don't need elves to fill little people, in my opinion. But
Yeah, I like the smarts. I think that makes sense. Too much, like they're kind of frail. Their intelligence is going to do more. In comparison to like a human, for example, right? They're more frail, less.
well, in this case, they're not really more. Well, unless you count the lack of this, they're almost just a human with strength taken away, and they are a human with strength taken away and 1 int added. We may need a little bit more variation there. But the only thing I can think of taking away, I don't want to take away, and that's the stamina.
Dex.
What about -1 Dex +1 to agility? Just move it into there.
That doesn't do you any good. Not really.
That makes it more human.
Oh, it does. Oh, whoops.
No, dex to agility would be like so 2 agility, but no dexterity. That's tanky. Agility is tanky. Dexterity
Oh,
is offensive. I don't see. The reason I went this route is because you regularly see elves that are rogues in lore of different lores. That's and you also see elves that are casters. Um,
So either way, their stamina is low.
right, and this is currently low stamina now. I mean, we can make the, the choice to say from your racials you get no stamina, but that is unique if we do that at this point.
Okay.
And that's the only place I really see it like in changing, unless we wanted to do like take away both the dexterity and the agility and add like a spirit and and make them just like you are a glass cannon.
I feel like, yeah, I was kind of thinking like I'm trying to make it more like I feel like an elf should be kind of like a glass cannon. Like you throwing big spells or critting things. Generally, only doing one of the two.
But are we taking away their ability to be melee really at all? If that's the choice we make, that's the choice we make. But that's a
Oh,
big choice.
I was including like daggers. Like they would still use daggers.
If
Sort
they're
of
going to
like
use daggers, that's why the agility and the stamina, the agility and the dexterity is there. That's the crux, right? That's the rub. That's the problem.
can we have a glass cannon that's a dual wield dagger user? It would be very hard to use, but I also don't think it would have to be bad. Or am I wrong there?
See the highlighted screen. Goblins are your dual wield glass cannon class currently.
Okay.
They don't have any strength, but with roguing, you'll be able to get attack power from other things if you spec towards it. So, um, I definitely want the elf to be capable of doing magic stuff. I mean, I that's very roguey to me. Um, or very so not roguey, very elfy to me. I don't want to take that away. The more the question
Well,
is, go ahead, Corey.
I guess it kind of comes down to, yeah, do we want to make them very specific? Like elves are your mages and priests. Goblins are your rogues and hunters.
Well, it
Dwarves
depends
are
on
your
what you're doing
tanks.
with them. If you're cool with them not
Or
having health and shit, yeah. Does that make sense? Like, if damage is your only goal, then yes, agreed.
I'm just thinking building a character for one thing.
Well, okay, but what I'm trying to say is there's more than one aspect to each class. Like, so if you had a rogue that was like an invasion tank, you might want it to be a dwarf, where it has stamina. So it could maybe take a hit or two, versus the goblin, which don't let it get hit because it's got real low health. Now you're
Yeah,
gearing like a
evasion tanking would be cool. That's just hard to do.
yeah. It was just a there's all I'm saying is there's more to it than just damage.
Hmm.
And if the game gets to the point where it's just damage, I feel like we've done something wrong and we need to readdress the balance of the game. Because I feel like your character should be taking damage, right? It's not like a MMO where it's like just the tank gets hit. And
Yep.
if anybody gets hit, they're doing something wrong. Like,
Yep.
I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
All right. Then yeah, I'd say we can make some minor adjustments, but we probably don't want to go too flat on any race then, is my opinion.
What does flat mean to you?
Just one sided, like int based, no dex, no agility, no little stamina. Um, like elves are your mage priests. Like we don't want to go into that direction. We want them to be a little bit stronger as your major priests, but you can make an elf hunter if you wanted to. Try something new or
Right. So then the question would be, is a 1 int change enough to be your
per
caster
level.
race? Yeah. Well, no, per 3 levels. It's a 1 int per 3 level change. So originally everything was it doesn't need to stay this way. Everything was done off of 3 level cycles. Um and so wow, I gotta redo how this works. I redid these and I didn't do the tooltips, so I've got to redo the tooltips. You want to throw a GitHub in there for me?
Yeah.
The leveling tooltips. That's a mistake. Um, so there's 6 stats, and that's why I did it that way. I wanted to give 2 stats per level. Um, human gets one of each every 3 levels because they're the balanced race. I mean, that's pretty standard. And then because there was 6 and it's 3 levels and there's 6, then we're working with 6 stats for all the other characters. Now, what we can do now, though, because I changed the way this works, is we could say something like instead of 1 every 3, we could say 1 every 5. Oops, can't do that right now because we're running the game. But we could do that, and then we could just make it add up to 6. We could balance it in that way, which is why I made this change, is so the balancing could be more clear. Um, do we want to go that route, or do we want to stick to the 2 stats every 3 levels, or 2 stats per level, 6 stats per 3 levels balance?
I like the more consistent stats we have, or more frequent.
What does that mean?
The system every 3. That's what we currently are using, right?
Essentially, yes. I mean, it's a little different already, just
So
because
every
we
third
changed.
level, you get a big bump.
No, every level you're going to get. So that's what these offsets do, right? So this is happening because +2, it's going to change when you get that stat. +1, it's going to change when you get that stat. +0. So you have just
Okay,
you have offsets that make it so that you're getting stats throughout the leveling
cool.
process um, in a relatively consistent manner. Um, so no, it doesn't. You don't just jump up every 3 levels. So
Um, I don't know. I mean, it seems fine as is so far. Do you think there are any problems with it? You know it better than us.
well, it's limited insofar as, let's say we have this elf and we have this problem with the elf where we don't know what to do with the elf, like we've been talking about for the last 10 or 15 minutes. Um, well, that might be able to be solved if, for instance, we reduce the stamina to like 1 every 4 levels, so 0.25, and then took that extra and put it on the spirit, for instance, and boosted that up whatever the change is, so it was like 0.4 something, 0.41, whatever. And now we have less consistent leveling, which is something Kyle brought up and he didn't really like, but okay. That's a negative of this. But you have more variation between your races. And you can also use all 6 stats for every race if you really wanted to, and then just shift their stats around, which is I wasn't able to do before changing it. Um, so for instance, let's say you will go to the dwarf and we're like, that's a crap ton of stamina. Maybe that's too high, you know. But I was limited to every 3rd level, so I could then go say, okay, what if we go to 3/4 of a stam per level? Now we have 0.25 to add somewhere else, maybe into strength, for instance. And then now he's both strong and has stamina, and it's a little bit more balanced. So it's more granular. It allows us to be more granular, but then it does move away from that very specific leveling.
Okay. So swapping to every 4 levels instead of 3.
We'll swap into whatever we want. I mean, this just needs to add up to 2 essentially, right? So that's 1 essentially, and that's 2. If you go to the human,
Mm.
then this is 0.6, 0.6, 0.6. It's 2 essentially, and so as
And
long
what
as
does
the
that 2 represent?
2 skills per level average.
2 skills per level average. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would say I would like 4 instead of 3, only because then you don't run into issues where it's like 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, right? You just get a flat 2, 5, and it's always going to round. If you were to level to 1,000 for whatever reason, you're not going to get weird extra stats.
Well, if we're going to that system, it's to be granular, not to get super specific and go to, oh, it's got to be 4s. Like that's not the purpose of becoming more granular.
Okay. It's an added benefit.
It's an added benefit, and if it lands on that, that's fine. Our brains are going to think that way, and it probably land on that way a lot. But you could have 0.421 on a stat if you wanted to at that
Mm.
level, right? I'm not saying it's going to be that way. I'm saying it's just more granular. Making the choice to go more granular just gives us more. I mean, the human's going to always be
So
this
then,
because
like
it's
every 10
balanced
levels, you could get stamina versus the dwarf gets at every level.
currently. Yes.
Okay.
Which would then allow you to still give some stamina without, like, if you
I
wanted the
think
elf to be low stamina, you would say, okay, well, low stamina, maybe that's point 0.2 or
mm,
0.25, you know.
right.
So that's a deviation under the human, but not 0. Whereas I couldn't do that before. If you deviated under the human, you went to 0, which to me is a problem because stamina is kind of important. I mean, as you get more powerful, not getting more health seems awful strange to me.
Yeah. So this has become our discussion topic, but I
Apparently.
think I think I think that's cool, and it would kind of make sense in areas that I'm not seeing much of a downside because I think level 5 you might seem a little stronger than level 4, right? Like the difference between 3 and 4 and 4 and 5 is going to be a little bit bigger, and the difference between 8 and 9 and 9 and 10, like 9 and 10 is a bigger jump. So you can have more things fall on that 10 and the 5s. Um, as for like a leveling scaling, if that makes sense, to kind of set up how the leveling scales. And correct
Well,
me if I'm going in the direction with it, but just kind of thinking ways to balance that out to where, yeah, you may not get anything between 3 and 4, which feels weird.
that I would want to avoid happening.
Yes, it would be nice to avoid that happening, but that's, I don't know. Where do you see the downside then?
The downside is less consistent. In
Meaning,
the previous system, I could tell you that at level 2, the elf was getting 1 spirit and 1 dex, and then 3 levels later is getting 1 spirit and 1 dex, and then 3 levels later is getting 1 spirit, 1 dex, right?
hmm,
And at the level 3 mark, he's getting 1 int, 1 stamina every single time. So every single, you know, 2 plus level over 3, essentially, he's getting 1 int, 1 stamina. It's very specific. You know what's happening. If you know about the character
Oh.
and you've looked at the tooltip, then you know what they're going to get next level.
hmm,
This, I mean, we can make the tooltip, but they're going to have to do more complicated math than that. That's all. And so it's less consistent. You might have a level where they get nothing, which would be awful. I mean, that doesn't feel good. But this is not the only place they get stats from. They get stats from their class, they get stats from their gear, they get stats from all kinds of things. It's not just race. This is just the stats they get from their race. This is one portion of their stats. And when they level, there's their race and their class that they're getting it from. But it would technically be possible, though extraordinarily unlikely, that both your race and your class gave you no extra
yeah.
stuff.
And that would feel weird. Maybe I'd want to go more towards like you get at least 1 stat per level. Like maybe you
You're
you
still
have a
getting
baseline.
the base stats, right?
What is the base stats? These are
So
part of
if
your
you're
base
getting
stats.
all of your stats from, so I mean, you would only be getting your stats from your race and class.
That's
Like,
where your
so you.
base stats come from, is your race and your class. Correct. What else would we get stats from?
I wasn't sure if maybe we wanted to just give them I don't know. Yeah, because if I level up and my stats don't change at all, I flat out think the game bugged.
Well,
If I'm
again, that's
playing,
extreme, but
yeah. I mean, at least if we get 1 point, if we can make it so you at least get 1 point somewhere.
that would
Um,
be up to the person who's trying to do this balancing. I mean, if that's the problem
Yeah.
with
mm,
this. The upside is you can make a lot more class distinction
Oh yeah.
and race distinction. Because you can get super granular. You know, you can go up to the millionth decimal point if you really wanted to. I mean, But in this case, I got 4 decimal points on the screen. You can move out as far as you want or as little as you want and get a much more granular experience. Um,
I mean, with these base stats, I would have a hard time putting anything past every 10 levels, I think.
I think that's even really far out, but yes, I mean to me, like every fifth level is like
That's like the
whoa.
minimum stat, right? Yeah, but that's like the minimum. Like, okay, you're a glass cannon, you get stamina every 10 levels. Okay, well, crap.
Yeah, I mean we can discuss the specifics. I think that's really low, but sure, maybe, you know, but it opens up that discussion. Um,
You're a caster, you get, agility or dex every 10 levels. I don't know. But yeah, I think going that direction would be cool. Um, that's going to change a lot of balancing. So the enemy mobs would work that way as well, then, right?
they already do.
I mean, they would
Everything
follow the
work.
same path,
Everything already works this way.
right?
It's just a
So the
matter. I'm
balance,
not using it yet. I'm not using the granularity.
I'm for it. I think that would make it better to expand upon, but it doesn't bring a whole lot. Well, it may bring some to the game, but it doesn't bring a lot to the game at this point, right? We already have some variation. We're making it a little bit better.
Yeah.
So from like a development standpoint, I say yes, it'd be fun to tinker around with that and get that moving and get started on a very granular like race versus class, and you kind of pick the two, and it actually matters. Um,
It currently matters. I mean, it definitely matters. Um, even now, I think we can make it matter more, and that's where I because and my two examples, like I said, is here. If I were to change the elf in a more granular way, I would probably strip a little bit of stamina, probably down to 0.25. Add whatever that change is. Looks like it's zero point 0.8 something. I don't know. I'm not gonna do it all. I would add that to spirit. So now they have above average spirit, below average stam,
mhm.
instead of average spirit and average stam, both. And
Yeah,
then I
I like it. I'm for it.
and then the other example would be dwarf. I would probably pull 0.75 out of stam because that's just a crap ton of stam. And I'd probably put into strength and say, okay, now he's quite strong actually. That would be,
Core spirit,
or it could
but
go to
yeah,
spirit, or you could say any one of these, maybe pull some out of agility and put it into spirit. I don't know, but you'd
yep.
be able to get more granular than just say, well, we have to wipe out the agility completely if we want rid of it. Like, oof, ouch, you know. And then
Hmm.
we could even add something in for other races, like, oh, we want to get some of whatever stats, some spirit on this character on this race, or we don't
Right.
have any.
We've got level 14 that gives you nothing, so let's
Well,
find out a way to give you some.
you're gonna have
Yeah.
to you're gonna have to multiply all these out to figure out if there's a level without them. It's not a simple thing to
Oh, I
figure
know.
that out.
And
Yeah,
you're gonna have to combine it with every single class as well, or race and
every
class, right?
race, hmm
Yeah.
which is undoable. I'll just say that there's the potential for
Do
that
we
to
need
happen.
spreadsheets for that? Yeah.
I'm not doing that spreadsheet, so somebody else might want to, but it's not happening.
Yeah.
That's too much time on the budget we have. Was it? What'd you say, Kyle?
So that's just a lot of work.
Yeah, it's just too much. So that would be the negative. That would be the drawback. I think it would be extremely rare when you start to mix those two. Um, but could happen. I mean, it's possible. So
Well,
okay.
what do you guys think?
So now back to goblins.
Oh, we didn't decide.
I'm for the granularity. That's why I put it in. That's why I changed this whole thing. I did that maybe 2 patches ago or something like that. First of all, it's easier as a developer for me to get what I want out of it. As a whole, it's harder for me to get individual levels to do what I want, but it's much easier to get the character to line up as a whole that way. Um, and the amount of lines of code like this may seem small, but if you looked at, let's see if I can find it. I don't remember where it all is. Maybe in mobs. Yeah. Okay. So let's see if I can find. I think I deleted it. So this is how they're scaling. Like they scale based on the difficulty level of the game and all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of scalars everywhere um, to work on it. This is now what 30 line 37 to line 79. So we're looking at 42 lines of code. That was over 200 lines of code in my old way. So reading through it was near impossible to make changes. Now it's like, oh, well, we want to add some stamina to this guy every level. Sure, we can do that. So these are elite mobs, so they get a stamina every level. For instance, they get intelligence and strength, which is essentially damage. So they get flat damage every level, or every, sorry, not every level, but most levels, 3/4 of levels. And so that's the granularity I couldn't add. There's a non 3 level. So I've already started using it on some stuff. And then like bosses, it's the same. Nope, that's. Oh, is this the old stuff? Let's see. Nope, I just have it in regions. But you can see they get more health and more damage. So int and strength are your base damage stuff. That's why I'm adding them there. But you got all kinds of other things. But this was just hundreds of lines of code and digging through each different kind of mob. And then, oh, so you have individual mobs that have stats too. Let's see if I can find one. There we go. There's some. Anyway, it got so bad I just could not keep a track of it and
Mhm.
make edits. Like we kept finding mobs that were like, that's not right. That health is way too low or way too high. I'm like, ah, shit. I got to go through hundreds of lines of code to figure out why that one mob has wrong health. So that's a big reason I switched it to this more granular approach.
All right. Well, I guess we kind of need to figure out what we want to do with each class, and if we need to, we can make it more variable. Because I don't know what you guys think.
I didn't
If you
understand
want
that.
to go
That seemed like
more
too
variable or
generic.
not.
I'm for granular. I mean,
I
so
think I like the granular system actually. Yeah.
so for all three in agreement, then the granular system's where we'll go. We'll worry about how exactly to balance these later. We don't need to do that now. But
Yep.
so our goblin is sneaky. He is shifty. He's smart. He's got currently average health. So that's what a goblin is. So then our jeweler is a goblin. And let's bring it all the way back.
Yep.
And then why is he there? What is he really just there because the dwarves showed up? Are we that entwined that we are.
Is he the only goblin in the town? Are there more goblins around? There's more goblins, right? He just happens to be. He set up shop. He's making some money.
Yeah, so the world wouldn't be super segmented. In like the WoW world, it's super segmented, right? You don't see any orcs in, let's say, the Thunderbluff, not Thunderbluff, but in the Tauren starting area, right? There's no orcs
Mm-hmm.
in the starting area. It's all Tauren. And then there's no Tauren in the orc starting area, and there's no orcs in the undead starting area. It's super
Yep.
segmented. I don't see the world being quite that segmented. You have their home area, they're going to be a much larger percent of the population, but not like nearing
Is
100%.
Alliance, is Alliance the same way?
Yeah. I mean, you got a
Okay.
few dwarves in Stormwind, but if you're not in the major cities, there's really not dwarves around anywhere in the starting zones,
Yeah.
or gnomes, or night elves, um, which is weird. You have these allied races, but they're like, no, no, but we're not gonna be around each other. We'll fight with you on your side, but we're not gonna live next to you. It's kind of a weird uh, thing in my mind.
Yeah.
So, but having the story of why they're there, because it would obviously be easier to be a dwarf where being a dwarf is easier to be a dwarf, right? You're like, well, there's
Yeah.
a billion underground tunnels for me to go. make my home in that were dug 10,000 years ago. I don't even have to dig. I just got to go make my home in the tunnel or whatever. And the elves, it's gonna be easier to be an elf because you're like, hey, I want to live in the tree or whatever. I don't know how our elves do. I'm just saying. We got these giant forests in our land that we've been growing for generations and generations. So you're gonna have more elves in that area. But that shouldn't preclude groups of individuals like with the blacksmith dwarf coming in and saying, hey, there was stuff to mine. I forget exactly what we had in mine, but there was stuff to mine. The dwarves wanted it. They came in, they mined it, they settled. Some stayed even after the mine was, completely mined out, um, because that was their new home now. So with the goblin, yeah, I mean, if the reason is, you know what, the dwarves didn't want the gems, they just wanted the ore, okay, but that's a long way to move and a lot of
That
knowledge.
explains one goblin, right? So I guess kind of is that saying all goblins go to kind of jewel crafting and they are
No,
maybe okay. So then it doesn't really like that would be his one story, but I mean anybody could have taken that up, right? It doesn't have to be a goblin to have
right?
taken that.
Could have been an elf.
So could have been a
Um,
dwarf. It's like I don't care about that. I'm different.
I'm a weird dwarf. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. So
Um, it, but see, being an individual story is not a problem to me. So maybe that's all it is. It doesn't have to explain why all the goblins showed up, does it?
mhm.
Um, yeah, it doesn't bother me necessarily.
Yeah, maybe he was friends with a dwarf and or maybe he hitched a ride with the dwarf and he was in a bad spot before, right? So as the dwarf was coming to this city,
Well,
then
so that wouldn't work for him based on the storyline because that's a mined out mine. That mine's been mined for generations.
okay,
So dwarves would no longer be migrating there.
okay,
Um, it would have to be like generations long, and then that would be like there'd be a bunch of goblins at that point, which would be fine.
and then why would he join you and not stay with the shop, right? If it's generations that were handed down that his great 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 grandpa owned that shop, and it's just kind of passed down through the family.
Well, if we're tying it to mine, the mine no longer is productive, so gems aren't coming out. That makes that easy. He doesn't have much to do because there's not a whole lot of new gems to cut.
Okay.
If we're not tying it to that, that's a great question. I don't know. I have to answer that, right? So, um, could just be that we're bringing him so many gems that he's like, "Fuck yeah, dude, I'll come with you." Getting lots of work, lots of gems to do.
All right. Well, the town's really not bringing me any gems. You're the only one that's really been having me cut gems for you. So,
Right. So I'll go with you.
yeah.
So either one of those work. I guess we just want to decide, is the goal to tie it to the gems that were coming out of that area, or do we want to have a separate story?
I feel like if he's the jeweler, he should be tied to the gems somehow.
Well, but you're assuming there's gems in the other cave, right? That you're adding that to the story. That's an addition to tie it in. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And that's
Yeah.
fine. I'm not against that. If the goal is to tie it to the other story, fine. That's a good way to do it. I don't have a problem with it. If we want to have a more unique story, then we need to come up with a story that's not so tied to the previous story. Um, and that's what I'm saying. We got to make that decision. So,
So do we have an idea on the enchantress story at all? I guess jumping ahead a little bit.
female elf probably is what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hers is a little easier because she lives in a big city. You could just say that the regent of the area, whatever we decide that is, needed an enchantress for whatever, sent it out. As a base storyline, that's simple enough. We can get more complicated. Um, I don't know that we want to try to tie enchanting to gems and blacksmithing. Gems and blacksmithing through the mine is tieable, so I'm like that works. I don't know how you would. Maybe somebody can come up with an idea how you would tie the enchanting to the other two. Um, they're very different. So unless somebody has an idea, I don't have an idea on that.
Sure. I'm not saying to tie it. I'm just saying in the difference of story, right? If hers is super far off or tied to it one way or another, just trying to get an idea of consistency
I don't
or
really have a story for the enchanter.
a baseline if we have anything set so far.
I don't. I do not.
Not very creative in these areas, unfortunately.
Yeah, not either.
Well, we came too unprepared for this, apparently. Um, Kyle, it sounds like you're in favor of trying to tie the two. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Corey, are you in favor of trying to tie the two?
Yeah, I think that's cool. It kind of gives you some of the history and that you're picking them up and you're kind of coming in and
Okay.
reestablishing things. Like the mine is dried up, right? They've mined everything there was to mine, and now it's just kind of taken over.
Or at least what's efficient to mine. I mean, to be fair.
Right.
But
Yeah. So that would make sense for him to leave that town. It tells you a little bit of backstory in the same process. So I think
okay,
that
so
is a good option.
the goblins came there, not just this goblin, but goblins came to this area specifically because there was money to be made that the dwarves were passing up. Is that what we're
Yeah.
basically saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Now that we know that that's why the goblins came, how did they get there? Because the goblins come from very far away in the world of Delenar. Um, dwarves are just north. It's not very difficult for them to come down. Do we need a bigger reason than there were some gems to buy, or is that good enough for our goblins?
I mean, I would consider that good enough. You could kind of almost gold rush it, like how there's the gold rush on the west coast of the U.S. and all, like kind of similar theme and
Sure,
story.
but there were no other mining humans in the area in like the gold rush, right? So there were humans in the California area, for instance, but there were no humans that mined in the area. Whereas we're saying these goblins came across the entire world, so think of it like they traveled from like Turkey to California uh, for the gold rush. Sure, but why didn't the human jewelers or the elven jewelers or the dwarven jewelers make that choice? Was there something that the goblins wanted that the other races may
Yeah.
not have wanted?
So what happened in their land, right? Do we have much on the Goblin land? Did something fall apart? Did they?
We have
Well,
nothing,
they
nothing
could
in the
have.
Goblin land.
I mean, the mine's dried up now, so maybe everyone left except this goblin. He's like one of the last people left.
Right, but we're still working on why he's there.
Yeah. Why would they have traveled so far? Why would some smart dwarf not pick this up, or why would a human not come in and do it that was a lot closer and they had heard about it sooner?
Do we
You know,
want to
because they
give the
could have.
goblins flying technology like they have in WoW?
No.
Okay.
Well, I mean, maybe the Zeppelins,
Yeah,
I
just something like
guess.
that. I'm thinking if it was easier for them to travel compared to most of the other species, and it's in the mountains on top of that, then I could see a reason. Like maybe airship was the best way to get in and out of the mountain area.
Well, but if they have airships, everybody has airships, right?
Um,
Or access to them. Um, it's not. I mean, that's a fallback though. If we can't come up with something else, it's a decent fallback. Um, I guess I was thinking maybe there was something special about these gems that the goblins wanted access to. some form of power, some special gem, something the goblins are using that nobody else is using for some reason.
Yeah, without giving them some kind of technology to power or something, I'm trying to come up with a reason.
Well, so the whole point of you get the gems in act or level 1, basically, right? They're there. The jeweler brings combining them.
Right.
So
And
that would
uncycling
have
them.
to be tied to some kind of combining the gems technology or power.
Wouldn't have to be.
I mean, for them to come there specifically, I guess there'd be so many gems. I guess it wouldn't have to be.
Because that would be saying that you need this power to be able to combine gems. I'm not against it. It just seems all jewelers would still need it, not just goblins alone. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
What if goblins invented the technology?
To combine gems.
Yeah, and like it's still spreading to everyone else, but they're the best at it because they came up with it first. That could be a good argument. Is
That
like maybe
that
this mine was
is
full of
that is not a bad argument.
maybe the mine was full of a ton of really tiny gems. They're just all fragments, so no one wanted to deal with it. Where the goblins are like, well, I get a bunch of them, make a really nice gem.
Okay. So goblins invented the okay through their greed. Goblins advanced the technology of combining gems. Okay. And that mine produced garbo gems. Interesting. I kind of like it.
Yeah.
Good
I
job,
like it.
Kyle. I like that.
Cool. Well, Corey's gem idea was, or combining gems was good too, kind of based off that.
Yeah, I mean, all of it. I'm just saying that was a good way to. You filled a bunch of holes all at once
Yep.
with a very
Yeah.
small change. Good job. I like that a lot.
Cool.
See, that's why I push back all the time. It's because I'm waiting for something that makes it all come together.
Yeah.
All right, so just to reiterate, we have goblins that we still don't know why they came necessarily from. Oh no, we do. We do know why they came
We do know
because
why
it
they
was
came.
Garbo gems nobody wanted. Okay,
Everyone's yeah, everyone's complaining. Man, this mine just giving me a ton of gems, but they're all shit gems.
the
Oh,
dwarves didn't pay attention to them because they were too small and too crappy. They weren't worth having. The goblins invented a technology in order to combine those gems into better gems. You know, long, long time ago. That technology is spread throughout the world, but a long time ago they were the only ones. So they show up, they're getting all these tons of just grain of sand sized gems, and they're combining them to create better gems. That's why our goblins are over here. This guy wants to leave because the mine has dried up, doesn't really have the ability to leave. We come along, do some quests for him. He likes us. We bring him gems. He's like, hell yeah, I'm going with you guys. And we can fill in the more granular details
I
as we
miss
go.
doing this. Yeah.
We're good with that? I think that's what we decided on. I was just trying to reiterate it all. Did I miss anything?
No.
I mean, we could even argue that's why the dwarves didn't want the gems too.
Because they're
Kind of
Garbo,
fits in there too. Yeah,
right?
because they're bad.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that agreed. That's I said that actually in the wrap up.
Oh, I just mean specific because the dwarves are still there mining all the metals. They want the iron and that stuff.
Well, and they may want the big gems
And the big gems, yeah.
because that would make sense. They could socket those. They didn't need to combine them. They can make some good gear out of that. That works. Our dwarves aren't stupid now. Cool. Um, and our goblins, through their own greed, invented a technology, and that's actually how a lot of technology gets invented. So that all works. I like it, even though I didn't come up with any of it. We're good on that? Everybody agree?
Yeah.
All right. We have our basic backstory for our goblin jeweler. Start thinking about why the enchantress is there so that when we get to that point, we have at least some ideas. Um,
we could base a whole economic boom around the gem combining because now the goblins have all this money to spend. So maybe they spent it like we can kind of
Oh, we'll worry about
keep
you. You
everything together.
you get your ideas together, and we'll talk about them when it's time for the enchantress, which actually won't be that long, I don't think. Um, till then, but definitely come up with your ideas. Think about them. I think we probably are over for today. We're an hour and 10 minutes in, so
Mm-hmm.
unless we have something we need to discuss, I think we did good. We solved a problem that I do very poorly, which is come up with storylines. So
Yeah, all three of us. So maybe
combined efforts are good.
One day we'll have a writer.
yeah, maybe.
Well, I know a writer. He's just not cheap. So,
I mean, on the team, but yeah.
yep. All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you guys have a great day, whether you're watching on YouTube or Twitch. Hopefully you'll drop a like or a follow or whatever it is on each different thing, and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Bye.